like it's right at 10 o'clock Central Time, which is the starting time for this webinar. I am going to go ahead and get started on time, just out of respect for everybody who's here. As you can see, all attendees are automatically muted on entry just to cut down on background noise. If you have a question, please type it in the chat box. You can either exit full screen mode to see the chat box, or you can put your mouse at the bottom of the window and a little option for chat should pop up there as well. I will be monitoring the chat box for questions during the webinar and read them to Angela at the end. Excuse me, as always, this session will be recorded and posted to YouTube for future viewing. Usually it takes about a week to get our closed captioning done. So I want to go ahead and welcome to everyone today's National Network of Libraries of Medicine webinar. This session is hosted by the Greater Midwest region as part of our Kernel of Knowledge series. For those of you not familiar with the Greater Midwest region, we're located here at the University of Iowa. Hence the kernel of corn in our Kernel of Knowledge series. We do have an exciting presentation for you today, so I want to go ahead and get started. Just make sure we have time for all the content and some questions at the end. This session, we will be offering a 1-hour CE certificate for it at the end of the webinar. I'll post the link to that in the chat box and hang around for a couple of minutes so everybody has a chance to click on that. All right, I am going to go ahead and introduce myself for those of you not familiar with me. My name is Bobby. Oh, look, Angela's on top of the slides. My name is Bobby Newman, and I'm the Community Engagement and Outreach Specialist here at the Greater Midwest region. I connect with our public libraries in this 10-state area and beyond. As I mentioned, there is going to be a 1-hour CE certificate offered at the end of today's webinar. And I'm thrilled to announce our guest presenter, Angela Myers. She's the coordinator of youth and special needs services at the Bridges Library System in Wisconsin. She has previous work experience in public libraries and area nonprofits. She has a Bachelor's of Arts and a Master's of Library Science from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to her and turn off my video so I'm not distracting you guys.
Okay, and I think I will follow suit and I will stop my video for now and I'll come back a little bit later. Okay, so I want to thank you, Bobby, for inviting me to give this talk about memory cafes in libraries. And thank you all for taking the time out of your day to tune in. Before we get to the good stuff about the memory cafes, here are some facts and figures for you. The number of Americans living with Alzheimer's disease is growing, and growing fast. More than 5 million Americans are living with Alzheimer's disease. And by mid-century, this number could rise as high as 16 million. Alzheimer's disease is the 6th leading cause of death in the United States. And every 66 seconds, someone in the United States develops the disease. Between 2017 and 2025, every state across the country is expected to experience an increase of at least 14% in the number of people with Alzheimer's disease due to the increases in the population aged 65 and older. Looking at this map of projected prevalence of dementia by state, the West and Southeast are expected to experience the largest percentage increases in people with Alzheimer's between 2017 and 2025. Take a moment and find your state and see what the prevalence is going to be between 2017 and 2025. And a statistic that I recently learned from our partners over at the Alzheimer's Association is that 70% of people with dementia are still living in their homes right within our communities. As I was first getting started in learning about memory cafes and who they were intended for, there were a few terms that I needed clarification on. So I thought I would provide you with some terminology for today's session on memory cafes. Dementia is an umbrella term for Alzheimer's disease that it can fall under. It can occur due to a variety of conditions, and the most common form is Alzheimer's disease, accounting for 60 to 80% of dementia cases. Caregiver and care partner are persons that provide care for the individual living with dementia. This could be a spouse, an adult child, adult niece or nephew, a family member, a paid care partner. We also have care receivers and persons with. This is the person living with dementia, not dementia patient. Person living with is an example of using person-first language, and it is the philosophy of putting individuals before their disability. The basic idea is to use a sentence structure that names the person first and the condition second. For example, people with disabilities rather than disabled people, in order to emphasize that they are people first. Another term that you may hear is families living with, which includes all the family and friends caring for a loved one with dementia. Well, you're all welcome to come to one of our memory cafes in southeastern Wisconsin. I wasn't sure how realistic that would be, so we put together a short video to show you a snapshot of what you might see at a memory cafe. Okay, we're gonna give this a try here through YouTube.
So, Angela, I don't think we're hearing any sound. Are we supposed to? Okay.
Yes, there's music, but there's no talking, so I guess this will do.
Okay.
Okay, and if you wanted to review that with the music, it's available on our Memory Project website, which is www.librarymemoryproject.org.
And I will.
That sound didn't come through.
I'll be sending out all the links after the webinar when I send out the recording, so don't worry about trying to chase those down now.
Okay. So I wanted to just ask you a question. Can you identify the person with dementia within these pictures? It's pretty difficult, isn't it? Offering programs for persons with dementia is just like offering adult programming, but with sensitivity. It's really no different than offering a book club or a computer class. You're just offering a service to the community members that need it most. So what is a memory cafe? Memory cafes are social gatherings for those who are experiencing early stage dementia, mild memory loss, or mild cognitive impairment, also known as MCI, along with a family member or care partner. The cafe is a place to have fun, share experiences, and stay socially connected. Memory cafes have roots in the Netherlands dating back to 1997 and were formed as a way to break through the stigma associated with various forms of dementia. It simply wasn't discussed, and those with the disease and their caregivers were suffering as a result. The concept spread throughout Europe and eventually to the United States. But I wanted to make sure that you were aware that memory cafes are not respite care. Respite care offers a break to the primary caregiver and is more of a drop-off program. Memory cafes are also not support groups. I wanted to take a moment to give you the details of the Library Memory Project, for which that is what I am most familiar with in terms of memory cafe offerings. The Library Memory Project is an umbrella term that consists of two different groups of 4 libraries that offer monthly memory cafes on a rotating basis. The first group of 4 libraries to form was called the Lake Country Libraries Memory Project, which you'll see on the left-hand side of your screen. The rotation consists of hosting the memory cafe twice at one library, and then it goes to the next location. What is unique about our rotating cafes is that besides the fact that they rotate, is that the libraries do their best to send a staff member from one library to the next to offer support and assistance. So you'll see on your screen that in January and February, the Pewaukee Public Library hosted 2 memory cafes. Then in March and April, that cafe moved to the Heartland Public Library. But what's unique about our project is that the person from Pewaukee Public Library actually travels to the Heartland Public Library to offer support and assistance. Another group of 4 libraries formed a year later in 2016, and they are called the 4 Points Library Memory Project, which you'll see on the right-hand side of your screen. Our project consists of more than just monthly memory cafes, but also educational programs on brain health and wellness, and memory screenings, which I will touch on later. What do memory cafes look like? Well, our memory cafes are 1.5 hours in length with 30 to 45 minutes of programming max. We build in a lot of time for socialization and refreshments. The structure is definitely looser than most library programs and can take some getting used to for library staff. We have to tell ourselves not to overschedule the memory cafes and to be flexible if something needs to change on the spot. While our cafes are advertised as 1.5 hours in length, we like to build in some time before and after to encourage conversation amongst participants and volunteers. We offer a welcome, which is general housekeeping, and a casual icebreaker so that people can get to know one another. A memory cafe at the end of spring may use an icebreaker like, "What are you most looking forward to this summer?" Or perhaps a memory cafe serving ice cream may ask participants to share their favorite flavor of ice cream. I think when we offered this, it was butter pecan. So you'll see from this cafe timetable sample, it's a pretty loose structure, and it allows for flexibility. So it's very much unlike other things that we do at the library. So as any librarian likes to do, we like to put themes on things. So at the inception of the Library Memory Project, our libraries have developed their cafes around themes. While this is not necessary, it has become a thing that we all look forward to. Programs are either developed and executed by library staff, or in some cases, presenters are brought in to share on a subject of interest, such as old-time radio or paper marbling. A few examples of our favorite memory cafe themes include a one-room schoolhouse, which was offered by a local historical museum, Zentangling, which is like yoga for the mind, and making Valentine's Day cards. The Valentine's Day theme was a favorite because everyone was laughing, talking, and creating. And for once, they were just people having fun, not so-and-so with dementia. The picture on the right shows our participants making Valentine's Day poems using conversation hearts. And let me tell you, this was no easy feat. It includes some new ones I had never heard of before, like On Fleek, Text Me, and BFF. We had a great time creating poetry and then sharing it with everyone. So who attends memory cafes? Well, we usually see the primary caregiver in attendance with the person with dementia, but also sometimes we see adult children, grandchildren, or adult nieces and nephews will accompany a loved one with dementia. There are also times when there's a paid caregiver that accompanies the person with memory loss. We've had care partners come alone just to check it out before bringing their loved one to a cafe, and that's totally fine with us. In the upper left, you'll see that we have 3 generations pictured here. Clara, who is the primary caregiver to John, the person with, along with their daughter and granddaughter, attended our Poetry and Masks program. In the upper right, we have a caregiver that accompanies the person with memory loss, and they make a point of coming to almost all of our cafes, and they even cross the county to do so. In the lower left, we have a not-so-sneaky wife trying to get caught stealing ice cream from her husband's dish. And that was just a real treat to see her get busted by her husband. In the lower right, we have Harry, a gentleman with memory loss, along with 2 grandchildren by a woman named Bee, another participant. The kids had an unexpected day off of school, so they came to the cafe with mom and grandma. The kids were a much welcomed addition to the memory cafe, where the participants were learning to play Wii bowling. So why memory cafes? Research in the UK and the Netherlands show that memory cafe participation reduces social isolation, provides enjoyable interaction without stigma, acts as an entry point for needed resources, and offers access to information. We have observed that our memory cafes have helped reduce social isolation. In fact, some of our care couples that have met at the memory cafes have become friends, getting together for dinner or a show outside of the memory cafes. And nothing warms our heart more than that. The picture on the left is of a caregiver and another participant with dementia. The Humane Society came in to do a program about the benefits of adopting animals. And as a surprise, we had a few furry friends in attendance. The photo on the right shows a group of folks making Valentine's Day cards. There are two sets of families here, along with the dementia care specialist from the Aging and Disability Resource Center. Having this resource at the table is invaluable, as he or she can answer questions and provide resources on the spot. Nothing beats being able to ask someone a question instead of having to dial a phone number and having to wait for that call back. Hopefully what you have heard so far has intrigued you, and perhaps you are curious about what it takes to get started. So where do you begin? First, you need to determine if there's a need in your community. We had conversations with our local chapter of the Alzheimer's Association and the local Aging and Disability Resource Center to determine if there was a need in our community. The answer was a resounding yes. In addition to checking with these organizations, I would suggest checking in with your local senior center, assisted living homes, visiting nurses association, or other organizations that serve seniors or persons with mild memory loss. You just need to remember that you don't need to be an expert in everything. You just need to know where to find experts in the field. Second, I would suggest that you research memory cafes. This is a great first step by listening to this webinar. There is a website called memorycafedirectory.com, which is a good starting point for research. While it may not include every memory cafe instance, it does list quite a few throughout the country. I encourage you to visit a memory cafe if possible. So how did we learn about memory cafes? Well, we actually learned about memory cafes through the Wisconsin Library Association annual conference, where I attended a session on memory cafes in 2013. We then took that a step further, and we took a road trip to the Neenah Public Library, which is about 1.5 hours north of Milwaukee. And here's what we experienced that day. There was a greeter at the door to welcome us and show us the way to the meeting room where the cafe was being held. There was a registration table manned by a volunteer or library staff person where we filled out name tags with our first names. There was a refreshments table manned by another volunteer, eager to give us juice and cookies. There was a peer greeter, which is a person that is either a caregiver or a person with that can help welcome new participants. There was someone from the Visiting Nurses Association acting as the aging specialist and local resource. Then we had the memory cafe coordinator / library staff member who encouraged us to sit with the participants and interact. We found that wearing the generic, "Hello, my name is" name tag puts everybody on the same playing field and is something that we implement at our cafes today. And if you were wondering, the theme of the Neenah Public Library Memory Cafe was polka, and yes, we polka danced. And that's something that we do today. Not polka necessarily, but when we have visitors at our memory cafes, we make sure that they interact with the participants and engage just like anybody else at the table. Following our visit to the memory cafe, we talked about how and when we would start our very own memory cafe. But first, we knew that we needed partners. Partnerships can mean a lot of things. It can mean a business is willing to post your flyer, your friends of the library group will underwrite the costs of your program, or perhaps an organization will send a staff member to support your program. For us, this is what partnerships look like. This may seem a bit overwhelming, but really it's not. Partnering with organizations like the Alzheimer's Association and the Aging and Disability Resource Center is a win-win. You are providing a much-needed program to people living in your community, and your partners can co-promote a program that directly benefits their targeted clientele. We also consider all the member libraries that are part of the Lake Country Group and 4 Points Library Memory Project partners, and that's why you'll see the logos of all 8 libraries. Also, the Bridges Library System and the Milwaukee County Federated Library System are also integral partners in this project. So take a moment and consider, who could your potential partners be? Do you have a local chapter of the Alzheimer's Association? Is there an Aging and Disability Resource Center, Senior Center, Visiting Nurses Association? Perhaps you have a senior living facility or senior apartments, other libraries, or perhaps local businesses that might be willing to host your cafes if your library doesn't have the suitable space. As with many library initiatives, training is key. Pictured here are 2 staff members at a training, experiencing what we call fidgets. If you're familiar with fidget spinners, you know what fidgets are. We learned that putting some fidgets on the table for the participants can help start conversation or even ease anxiety by having something to manipulate in one's hand. Our memory cafe coordinators / library staff were invited to the local chapter of the Alzheimer's Association for a few-hour training, and this is what we learned. We learned the statistics of Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. We had a training that's called What It's Like to Live with Dementia, where we actually reenacted some things so that we could get a better idea of what it's like to live with dementia. We also had a communications training, and here are some takeaways. Speak calmly and slowly. Allow extra time for a response. Make eye contact and speak directly to the person with, and most importantly, be patient. Those are tips that we can use in everyday life, not just memory cafes. Staffing can vary from cafe to cafe, but our libraries have found that 1 to 2 library staff along with 1 to 2 volunteers makes for an ideal combination. So we suggest that you have some paid library staff and you assign a primary and a secondary contact. This is important so that staff can take vacation time, or if there is staff turnover, there is some continuity in the program. Our libraries have also utilized trained volunteers to assist the day of the Memory Cafe. Those volunteers happen to be community members or even board members. And our volunteers like to assist with registration and refreshments, interaction with the participants, taking pictures, and even doing setup and cleanup. Dottie and Mary, pictured here, are our 4 Points Library Memory Project volunteers, meaning they go from location to volunteer. They affectionately call themselves the Meet and Greet Group, and people are really excited to see them when they see them from one cafe to the next. So what kind of time does it take to plan and execute a memory cafe? Well, I surveyed a few of our libraries in the Library Memory Project to get an estimate on staff time to run a monthly memory cafe. You'll see there's a lot of items here. We tried to break it out as much as possible. The average time it took per month to plan and execute a memory cafe was 15.83 hours per month. This includes the time to run the memory cafe. You may see a variance amongst the libraries because some of our libraries have taken on additional opportunities to update the library's website and also the Facebook page, which I'll get to in just a little bit. What is not included in this spreadsheet is my time as the overall coordinator of the Library Memory Project. I keep communication going amongst all the libraries, and I also coordinate 1 to 2 check-in meetings per year to talk about what's working or not and to discuss any future plans. I also do quite a bit of marketing around the Library Memory Project and just getting the word out. You also need to take into consideration physical space. You can hold your memory cafes in a meeting room within the library or even out in the stacks, which you'll see here pictured on the left-hand side. This was one of our memory cafes where we had the one-room schoolhouse, and the tables for the memory cafe are set up right in the middle of the library stacks. Yes, that means people are wandering the stacks while we're offering a memory cafe, and that's just fine with us. Because not only is it a marketing opportunity, it also breaks down barriers for stigma. We've also held memory cafes out in our gardens, and you'll see on the picture on the right, we have a couple enjoying their very first memory cafe where we made mindfulness jars, where we placed some glitter and clear glue inside of a mason jar along with some water, and then close the cap, and you shake up that mindfulness jar, and then you watch that glitter fall its way down, and it actually helps calm you. You can also offer them out in the community. Think about collaborating with a local coffee shop or restaurant. You could also seek out a local senior center to see if they might have space for a memory cafe, and then you could offer your assistance as a facilitator. Marketing is such a huge component of our project that I would be remiss if I didn't devote an entire section to our efforts. According to the staff monthly time estimates, updating the flyer for the Memory Cafe only takes about a half hour. This is in part because we have a template for our flyers so that the only items that need changing is the location and the theme, which you'll see with the arrows on the flyer. It really cuts down on the time it takes to put a flyer together. And I thought I would show you what this Lego program looked like. The picture on the right is one of our participants, Milton. He comes by himself because he wants to stay socially engaged, and he is building a church out of Legos. And when he was finished with that church, he added it to the village that everybody was creating with Legos. So we had a church and a library and a hospital and a police department, and it was just really neat to see that come together. We have library van delivery service 5 days a week in our region, which means that we can easily share supplies among the participating libraries for our memory cafes. Pictured here is a traveling banner that goes from one location to the next. We also have a tote with registration supplies, including project brochures, name tags, markers, and fidgets for the tables, so that you don't have to scramble for those every time you're offering a memory cafe. The Library Memory Project website encompasses both of our projects, the Lake Country Group and also 4 Points. We have a few trained library staff that update the website with new events and postings on a regular basis. Clicking on upcoming events will give you a better idea of what our libraries are planning for their next few cafes. And past events will provide you with pictures of all of our cafes dating back to February of 2015. We also maintain a Facebook page for our Library Memory Project. Each of the 8 libraries involved in the project have editing rights to the Facebook page, meaning they can add content and respond to comments if needed. Cross-promotion of each other's memory cafes was one of the things that we built into our project. On the screen, you will see an e-newsletter snippet that was actually from the Town Hall Library's newsletter advertising the Memory Cafe at the Pewaukee Public Library. The first time I saw one of our libraries cross-promote the other's Memory Cafe in their newsletter, I literally had chills. Today is pretty commonplace to see our libraries do this, and I'm hoping it spreads to other library programs outside of memory cafes, because we need all the marketing help that we can get. In terms of marketing, we wrote for and received a $4,600 2-year marketing grant from Bader Philanthropies, which is based here in Milwaukee. A few things that we've done with the marketing grant is created a marketing plan and a detailed monthly task list so we know what needs to be done when and by who. We printed brochures for 8 libraries to give away freely. So they all have them out in their libraries, on the desks, at their programs, and we've even asked our other libraries that aren't participating in the memory cafes to have them in stock in their informational brochure racks. We bought swag like pens with a stylus, Post-it notepads, and eyeglass cleaning wipes to give away at resource fairs, farmers markets, or other events. And let me tell you, those eyeglass wipes are a hit. We purchased team t-shirts for the Walk to End Alzheimer's that was held last September in Waukesha, Wisconsin. And we are again going to walk in the Walk to End Alzheimer's this September as a group. We've done a few Facebook boosts, and we've also done some website hosting with the money from the Bader grant. So what does this all cost? You've heard that expression before. You get what you pay for? Well, in this case, it's not always true. Some of our favorite memory cafes have come to us at no cost, and you likely have access to some of the same resources in your community. Our community members have offered to present at our memory cafes and have included programs like Herbs for the Senses, where a local gardening enthusiast and library patron came in and we used our senses to experience herbs from the garden. The lavender-infused cupcakes were such a hit. We also had the Old Time Radio Enthusiast Club come in, and they did a very interesting and interactive talk at one of our memory cafes. And boy, we did a lot of reminiscing that day. We've also had a presenter come in from Spark. Spark is a national program that connects museums with local partners in healthy aging. We've had a program on masks and poetry, the streets of old Milwaukee, where the museum professional brought in actual artifacts from the Milwaukee Public Museum for us to hold and talk about. We even had a program on the beauty of the butterfly. We've also done some paid presenters because sometimes it just works out that you need to hire someone to alleviate the stress of your job for the Memory Cafe. We've had paid presenters for a drum circle where we had a drummer come in. He brought in enough drums for everybody to use. We've had a Shakespeare impersonator and even live music. People really, really love music. They're tapping their toes and really enjoying themselves when we have a band. You can also do a homegrown program like our Valentine's Day cards. You're going to see some program costs associated with that when you're purchasing materials. And of course, when you're providing refreshments, you're going to have costs for that, for cookies or cake or coffee or juice, that sort of thing. Where can you look to for that kind of money? Well, you may have to dip into your adult programming budget because this is just another adult program. You may also want to enlist the help of your friends of the library group. Perhaps they'd be willing to sponsor the refreshments for your memory cafe or look for outside grants.
NLM.
I heard a little birdie.
I'll talk more about that at the end.
So how do we track all of this? Well, registration is done via a shareable Google Sheet, and we found that that is the best solution for library staff in various locations. It allows our partners at the Alzheimer's Association to also log in and get the attendance figures for their records. They also have us take a record of whether or not the participants would like to receive the Alzheimer's Association newsletter so they can keep up to date on what's happening at the Alzheimer's Association. And the library staff use this tracking for sending out cafe reminders, whether that's through an email or a postcard. And we let the participants choose how they would like to be reminded. The average attendance at our memory cafes has been around 15, which includes the caregiver and the person with. And after 50 cafes, that brings us to a total of over 760 served. So of course, there are challenges with any program. And I would say that continuous communication is essential for the rotating nature of our memory cafes. Knowing who is on deck and at bat at all times is needed. For the libraries that have a memory cafe coming up in the next 2 months, they need to start working on getting marketing materials updated and distributed, get their program details finalized, their reminders out, and their volunteers lined up. For the library in the queue to host, they need to send a library staff member to help staff the memory cafe. Marketing is also another challenge. Our audience is ever-changing, and as a result, our marketing efforts need to be continuous. Also, due to the rotating nature of our cafes, we need to be ever vigilant about marketing each and every month to make sure people are aware of the new location month to month. There's also staff turnover, which fortunately we haven't had too much of, but by having that secondary contact on the library memory project has really helped in keeping things running smoothly. But I have to tell you, the benefits definitely outweigh the challenges. We have formed such strong partnerships with the Alzheimer's Association and the Aging and Disability Resource Center that we just can't speak highly enough. We have even had the Alzheimer's Association approach one of our libraries, the Pewaukee Public Library, to ask if they might host a support group for caregivers, which is what you will see on the screen there. I'm sorry, it's actually for persons with early stage dementia. So now that is a regular occurrence at the Pewaukee Public Library in addition to the memory cafes. We have gained such a satisfaction of doing something truly meaningful for those in our community and becoming more aware of those with dementia and their caregivers. We've also really enjoyed assisting at each other's libraries, which is allowing library staff to see how memory cafes are done at different locations, learning what works best and what didn't go over that well, and getting to know the staff at other libraries. One library said the extra set of hands and hearts really makes the memory cafes a memorable experience for all involved. And of course, continuous marketing. We've learned to make that a priority and seeing the positive results that it shows. So I want to make sure that I send you off with some advice before you go forward and start your own memory cafe. Most importantly, we encourage you to keep it social. Make sure that there's a social element to it and that it's not too academic, but it can be educational. Make sure that the program is scalable since you won't know how many are attending. Sharing limited supplies can actually bring people together. However, if they have to share cake, that might not be looked on as favorably. So always have some extra on hand. Make sure that you're flexible in your programming. Sometimes we tend to overschedule our programs, so you need to be ready to just throw something out or add something else in if something isn't working. The picture here is showing one of our drum circle cafes. It was a favorite, and the facilitator did a wonderful job of getting everyone interested and engaged in the program. Participants who have not been active in the past were tapping their toes and smiling the whole time. And you heard me mention Bee earlier. Her grandchildren were the ones that came to the Wee Bowling memory cafe that day. Well, this is Bee in the middle of the drum circle, and she is leading the charge by holding the wand. And so if she raised the wand higher, that meant that everyone had to drum louder and faster. And when she lowered the wand, everyone had to drum slower and quieter. It was such a powerful moment to see Bee in charge. If you aren't quite ready to start a memory cafe, there are other options to support those living with dementia in your community. I'd like to introduce you to a few other projects that I'm familiar with. One is called Dementia Friendly Staff Training. Training lasts between 30 minutes and 1 hour, and it's an educational session just for library staff. The training focuses on understanding dementia and taking action to create an environment that is safe, respectful, and welcoming to people living with dementia. This training can be given to libraries and businesses alike. Also pictured on your screen is a flyer from one of our memory screenings. A memory screening is a simple and safe, healthy brain checkup that tests memory and other thinking skills. The memory screening is a series of questions or tasks that takes approximately 10 to 15 minutes to complete and can indicate if someone might benefit from a comprehensive medical exam. Then last, we have Music and Memory, which is pictured on your screen. And this is run by a nonprofit organization that brings personalized music into the lives of elderly living through digital music technology, which has a result of vastly improving the quality of life. I'm proud to say that a number of the libraries in my library system are launching a Music and Memory program now. You can also offer up your library space for a support group to the Alzheimer's Association or another entity like it. You could also offer educational programs to the general public, such as brain health, know the 10 signs, care for the caregiver. I would suggest that you check with your local chapter of the Alzheimer's Association to see what types of programs they can offer in your community. And last but not least, try to update your library collections to include items on dementia and care for the caregiver.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and step in here, Angela, and I guess I should start my video again as well.
Oh, I have one more thing to say.
Oh, go ahead.
That's okay. Being involved in the Memory Cafe has been one of the most satisfying parts of my career to date. And if you have any questions, I definitely encourage you to reach out and ask me. I'm available by email or phone. You can even reach me through the Library Memory Project website. And I just want to thank everyone for taking time out of their day to learn about how memory cafes and libraries are a perfect fit.
Okay, as I said earlier, I'm going to send out those links that Angela talked about in an email to you guys. I probably will wait until the YouTube video is up. Well, no, I'll send them out before that. So you're getting a lot of thank yous, Angela. And then I'm going to go ahead and read through some of the questions that came in. Somebody is interested if anyone else has done a cafe, if you know if anybody's done a cafe in an academic library setting.
I have not heard myself.
Okay.
However, if you go to that memorycafedirectory.com, you might be able to find an instance of that, because I don't think it separates it out by library type.
Okay. And then, of course, if anybody's on the line that has done that, do respond and we'll unmute you. The next question we have is, do you know where to access that staff training, or who does that type of training? I think that's the dementia-friendly training you were talking about.
So we actually have a coalition in our area, the Oconomowoc Coalition to be Dementia Friendly, and actually it's like trained providers that are going out into the community to provide those trainings. So there are dementia care specialists or other folks that are trained in dementia.
So not necessarily the Alzheimer's Association, but a local organization?
Correct, but you could start with your Alzheimer's Association.
And
see if they would be able to do that, or you could check with your Aging and Disability Resource Center.
Okay. And I know from experience with other libraries that the Alzheimer's Association is always happy to work with public libraries, so they're a great place to start. The next question we have is, who administered the screenings? I think those are the memory screenings you were talking about.
So we actually had our dementia care specialist from the Waukesha County Aging and Disability Resource Center come out to our libraries and do those memory screenings. And what's really neat is that we are just providing the space in our libraries. So we'll use a meeting room or a study room, and then the dementia care specialist will actually schedule the appointments with the individuals ahead of time in 15-minute increments. So the person comes into the library, checks in at the study room, and then they have their memory screening there. And they usually provide like a privacy screen as well, so that it's a neutral and safe environment for the person to come to. And in our experience, we've had fully booked days with our memory screenings from, let's say, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Wow. And by privacy screen, you mean the screener cannot see the screenee?
No, meaning the public can't see who's being screened.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, so they'll set up like a little mini divider.
Okay, great.
If the room has a window.
That makes sense. Let's see. The next question I see is, do you see much participation from younger individuals with dementia?
We have had a few individuals that were early onset, but more so in the older area. But the Alzheimer's Association and the Aging and Disability Resource Center are actually two of our best referral sites. So they're the ones that are telling people to come to our memory cafes, that they're a safe space for them.
Okay. Somebody posted in the chat box that area agencies on aging would be a good resource to partner with as well. And they posted a link in the chat box. I'll go ahead and, of course, include that in the links I send out to everybody. So that looks like the end of questions. If you have one, please go ahead and add it. I want to talk about a couple things real quick before we wrap up. As I interjected during Angela's presentation, the GMR office, and probably your regional office as well, has funding for health-related type programs in our area. So if you're looking for a funding source for something like this or something else related to health and wellness at your library, you definitely should contact your regional office. If you're in the greater Midwest region, one of these 10 states, you want to contact me and I'll work with you on your application and some funding opportunities. Those funding opportunities are available to all types of libraries and other organizations. So if you've got an idea for a project, let us know. We're always happy to fund things. Angela, we've got another question.
Okay.
How have the memory cafes been received by the library's directors and boards trustees or board of trustees?
So incredibly favorably that it's ridiculous. We actually have 2 board members that come to our memory cafes to assist with registration and then just the general flow of the memory cafe. Some of our library directors are actually some of the primary or secondary contacts on the memory cafes because they wanted to be a leader in this. So we have had such a wonderful response to the memory cafe.
So I don't know if everybody knows this, but obviously dementia and Alzheimer's are not limited to older adults, but they are the larger percentage of that group, and we have a growing population with that. And so we definitely have a lot of programs going on, I think, or we're going to see an increase in programs centered around that. I'm working with a library in Indiana right now on some programs they're doing around palliative care, where they're bringing in the Alzheimer's Association as well. So I think they're a great group to work with. And I know us at the National Network of Libraries of Medicine have a couple of different courses and presentations on free, ad-free resources for senior health information, some of which is related to dementia and Alzheimer's. All right, it looks like that might be it for questions. I want to give everybody just a couple more seconds because I know typing isn't always the fastest thing. And I want to thank Angela so much for agreeing to do this presentation for me. I appreciate it so much. As I mentioned, my job here is to connect with public libraries, and part of what that means is chasing down the people in my region who are doing amazing work and begging them to come talk about it. And sometimes they're hard to find. Public librarians are kind of sometimes a shy bunch. So if anybody's on the call or listening to the recording that is doing something amazing related to health and wellness at their library and would like to do a webinar, please email me. We'll get you set up. All right, I don't see any other questions come in. I am going to go ahead and post that link for the survey into the chat box. That's going to give you a 1-hour CE certificate for this class. You will need to do, okay, great, thank you, April. You will need to go ahead and complete that survey. You'll go through a portion of it, and then it'll ask you if you want the CE certificate. And you say yes, and then you'll log in. If you run into any problems with it, do please contact me. As I mentioned, we're under a lot of transitions these days, so things might be a little funky. I will be sending out an email with the links, as well as an email with the link to the video after we get the transcript and the closed captioning done. We'll get that up on YouTube, and it'll be available to everybody. All right, I think that's it. Everybody have a great day, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. This video was produced by the National Network of Libraries of Medicine. Select the circular channel icon to subscribe to our channel. Select a video thumbnail to watch another video from the channel.